Hello, my loves. Continue to update new stories on Reddit, and don't forget if you like it, please subscribe and like it. Now let's start new stories. Story 1. I'm in love with my best friend and I don't know if she likes me back. I'm currently a 21-year-old female in college, and I met this girl who recently became my best friend. We started hanging out more during the spring semester and we just instantly clicked, hanging out in the same friend group. Within this group, we started flirting in front of our other friends as a joke, and this continued for a while. I have always identified as straight and have only thought about dating guys my whole life. However, since I've become friends with her, I've been questioning myself if I like her in a different way. She's very touchy-feely with me. We're always hugging or on top of each other, taking naps together at school, etc. This is when I started liking the affection from her and constantly craving it. During this whole time, I had no idea if she even liked girls or not. Then, on the last day of school, she told me she's bi and that she might like girls. When she told me this, my heart raced with excitement. First, because she was comfortable enough to tell me, and second, because I might not be crazy and she actually could be interested in me. I've always gotten vibes from her that she might be interested, but I think she believes I'm 100% straight, so I don't know if that affected our relationship. It was really new for me to have these feelings of attraction for a girl, so I didn't really want to say anything about my sexuality because I literally have no idea. I don't like other girls, I just like her. We then basically started hanging out the whole summer, meeting whenever we could in our busy schedules, which was at least once a week. One day, while hanging out, I told her how I kissed one of my girlfriends on a drunken night out as a joke, just to see how she would react. This is when it clicked for her that I might not be completely straight, as I could see the shock on her face. We continued hanging out the whole summer, cuddling in bed, calling each other baby, and she would say I'm her girlfriend. I've never outright discussed my sexuality with her as both our families are very religious, and it's not something we could make public. So, we're basically stuck in the closet. We say we're dating as a joke all the time and play along with it to our friends, but I ended up catching real feelings. Fast forward, it's now the fall semester, and she's gotten very social and friendly with other people. I tend to get jealous sometimes when I see her with other people, even though she's literally with me 24/7 every second of the day. She recently told me how she finds one of the guys in our class cute, and that really bothered me. I would tell her, "Wow, so you're cheating on me now," and she would laugh it off and think it's a joke. I get so frustrated that she's interested in these other guys and acts like she's obsessed with them. She's so affectionate with me, and we're always touching, holding hands. I'll be holding her waist when we're waiting in line, holding her face, caressing her hands, etc. I get confused because I don't know if this is how best friends should act. I really don't think so. Moving on, we went to a party one night at the beginning of the fall semester and got pretty drunk. There were some pretty close calls in the summer where I thought we were going to kiss, so I made it my mission that night that I was finally going to do it. My whole plan went perfectly, and I finally got her alone. I'm pretty sure she's the one who initiated the kiss. I was planning on kissing her at that exact moment, but she went for the kiss first. I kissed her back, and we broke it off as some other people walked in to check on us literally 2 seconds after we broke it off. We spent the whole night giggling and being physically affectionate. When it was time to go home and I was waiting for my Uber, she was kissing my face with little pecks, kissing my neck, and even bit my neck. It was really difficult for her to leave me that night as she was going home with another one of our friends accompanying her. She asked me why I wasn't kissing her back while still clearly drunk, but it was in front of a lot of other people, and I'm not ready for anyone to see me kissing a girl. That same night, when she got home, I texted her about how she was a good kisser. That's the only time we acknowledged the kiss. Story 2. It's a love story. The following is the story of how me, 29M, and my wife, 30F, met and married. Like many other people, my freshman year of college was a roller coaster of emotions. Between adapting to a new life and schedule, trying to make new friends, and the unexpected death of my father, things were changing fast for me, and I was struggling to be my normal, extroverted, happy self. I became involved with a ministry in college, and this helped me find like-minded people who I could not only laugh with, but also have the ability to openly talk about my struggles. My wife was also involved in this same ministry. Over time we would have discussions, but nothing too in-depth or serious. We were friendly to each other, but never anything more than that. Flash forward 2 years and we begin to hang out more and more because of a reason I'll touch on later, and we became really great friends. This would not last long, sadly, as my wife was about to travel the world for the next 2 years doing ministry work in third world countries. When I say doing ministry work, I do not mean she was hanging at resorts 6 days a week and visiting an orphanage for an hour or so. She was truly in the trenches, spending her years in remote villages where they don't have access to electricity or running water. While she was on this trip, she didn't have the ability to talk often, but whenever given the chance, I would talk to her about her stories, and this is where I began to truly fall in love with her. There was only one small problem. See, the reason we began to hang out more and more prior to her leaving was because she began dating a close friend of mine. While she was away on this mission trip, my friend became getting extremely close with another girl. They would hang out regularly one-on-one, openly cuddle each other around others, but according to my friend, nothing more than that. I spoke with my friend about this relationship and how he was emotionally cheating, but he never listened or paid any attention. I felt it wasn't my place to tell my wife about this, because I believed my feelings that I was developing for my herb scared me from being unbiased. After years away, my wife finally returns home. Within a month of being home, my wife's friends told her about the relationship between my friend and this other girl. My wife was aware that they were friends, but she was not aware to the extent of how close they truly were. This led my wife to immediately breaking up with my friend. Now, you're probably thinking to yourselves, wow, this is great news for OP. You have to remember, the reason we became close was because she was dating a friend. Also, as my wife returned from her mission trip, I had freshly graduated college and moved 3 hours away, back to my hometown, to begin a career. I also believed in my mind that my wife was only friends with me because of the relationship she had with my friend. Nevertheless, occasionally I would travel to the college town and meet up with some college friends. When doing this, I would ask them how my wife was doing. They would always keep me updated, and eventually a mutual friend tells my wife that I have been asking how she was. This sparks our friendship as she begins texting me, but still, I lived 3 hours away, so I had no intention of beginning a relationship with her, but it was still nice to be friends again. My wife, being her caring self, began fostering a 2-month-old girl about a year after coming back from her mission trip. She did this while single and working a full-time job. Years pass and I am extremely displeased living in my hometown. See, my father was a small-town hero type of guy. Very well known and very loved. I worked hard to bring positive change in my community, but I felt every action I did I was always compared to my dad. People never meant to offend me by comparing me to my father, but I always felt like if I stayed there I was going to be living in his shadow. I wanted to forge my own legacy. One day I interviewed for a job in the town I went to college in. Somehow, I get hired. Over the summer I move back and immediately I am excited for a multitude of reasons. Soon after moving back my wife and I begin spending a lot of time together. The 2-month-old girl is now 3 years old, and my wife and I do the silly thing and get married within 3 months of me moving. This became the greatest decision of my life. Since getting married my wife and I have adopted the girl, made a few kids of our own, bought a house, and are truly living the fairy tale life. We've been married for several years and life couldn't be better. I tell this story because I want others to know you never know who the love of your life is. It could be a stranger, a friend, or a friend's girlfriend. This world is too short and crazy. If you made it this far, I hope you enjoyed the read. This is my first time ever really making a Reddit post. Story 3: The Story of First Love. Just read a touching story about a person's first love and decided to tell mine. I left a comment in that thread but will expand it here. We were both 17 and in California. She dumped me after a year or so for a guy she worked with. I went on to college, but every now and then, she would find me through mutual friends when she got dumped. She always did the same things, called me all the time or wanted to hang out and, of course, wondered what it would be like if we got back together. I had no intentions of getting back together and would only hang out when I had nothing better to do, and only as a friend, preferably with other friends. She would always try to make it seem as if we were a couple, though. One night after an outing with friends, she didn't want to go home, as it was kind of far from where we were, and asked to stay at my place. This was an apartment I shared with another student, a great guy, but we had our own rooms and a living room with a comfortable couch that many friends had crashed on. When we got there, she went right to my room and started undressing. I excused myself to the bathroom and closed the door. I didn't go back to the room, I just slept on the couch. I really didn't need the emotional roller coaster that she was, distracting me from studying. I took her home the next morning, and she acted like everything was normal. After that, I didn't hear from her again. But that's how it always was. Eventually, she would disappear because she would get back together with whoever. After college, I got a good internship in Florida. That led to a great career and repayment of my college loans, a starter house, and a decent car. At 30, I met a nice, never married, no kids woman, not that there is anything wrong with that, who I have been happily married to for 23 years. I'm 53 now with 2 adult sons who have solid careers. Then, about 2 months ago, out of the blue, she called me at work and wanted to reconnect. I'm not sure how she found my info. I know there are ways, but I have done my best to leave a small footprint on the internet. Probably it's because my boss insists on posting our names and positions on our website. Anyway, I told her I wasn't interested and I was sorry. She tried to play it off like I didn't know who she was. I assured her I did know. There was a long pause, then I asked her to please not call me anymore. I heard her sob and I hung up. Later, I got curious and asked a friend to look her up on Facebook. I don't have any social media other than where I can remain anonymous. To me, long-lost friends are long-lost for a reason. Anyway, it seems she recently divorced from the guy she dumped me for and lives about an hour or so away from me now. On her Facebook page, she had pics of herself and her adult son, and a few pics of her son's wedding with her ex on the other side of the room from her. I felt a little sorry that her life is a mess in her 50s, but these were her decisions that led her there. I'm not saying it would have been any better if we had gotten back together. I wouldn't change my life after 30 for anything. Yeah, I did a few things in my 20s I'm not proud of. Anyway, my wife would never accept reconnecting with my ex, and I would never do that to her. I did tell my wife about it, as I don't want any misunderstandings between us. Sometimes unsaid, seemingly trivial events can get taken out of context. My wife shows me her phone and asks if it was this person. I couldn't believe what I was looking at. The display of her phone shows my ex's name and number. My wife tells me the woman asked for me, but my wife told her it was the wrong number and hung up. My wife does not like me talking to women she doesn't know, and some she does. She thought the whole thing was funny in the end. Side note, I took that girl to my junior prom and still have the pic. My wife has seen it and could care less about it, but when she saw my senior prom pic, she attempted to rip it up. Sigh, because the girl in my senior prom pic was Asian, and my wife is also Asian. I just pretend to understand how that works. Story 4, Love Finds a Way. My 35F relationship with my husband, 28M, shouldn't work, but it does. We've been together for 5 years, married for 2. We met at a pub. My ex and I divorced and we'd been split for just about a year at that point. I had been with my ex for 3 years, we'd dated for 2 years and were married for 1 year. Shortly after we got married, he started acting really controlling. I was in love, so I didn't see it at first. He was always gaslighting me, criticizing me, he was always micromanaging me. The biggest thing was he always looked through my phone. When we split, my ex kept trying to contact me. I blocked his number and his Instagram, but he kept making fake accounts and messaging me. When he figured out I wasn't going to respond, he stopped for a bit. He started occasionally sending nasty messages. Anyway, I was sitting at the bar and my husband was sitting a couple seats away from me. I had a rough couple days and my ex messaged me. It was so hurtful, and that coupled with how the last couple of days had gone, I started crying. My husband noticed and asked if I was all right. We started talking and he let me vent. We traded numbers and we met up a bit over the next couple months. We dated. It was essentially just us meeting for dinner once every couple weeks. We met at my place once and I told him about how I was finding it hard to trust people. Then he opened up about his parents. I don't want to air his issues out on here. All I can say is they were really abusive. Him telling me that gave me a new perspective about him. My parents were abusive too, not as bad as his, but still. It's something we connected about. We still continued to meet up, and every time I felt closer to him until I eventually asked him out on an actual date. We dated for 3 years until he proposed. He's an awesome partner. He's the complete opposite of my ex. Our relationship isn't perfect, none are, but he listens to me and we talk things out when we disagree. He said he doesn't want kids because he doesn't want to be like his parents, and I feel the same. I feel like our relationship shouldn't work because of our age gap, but we're still going strong 5 years later. Story 5: My Little Love Story While in Europe. Hey everyone, hope everyone's a good day today. I just wanted to share my little love story that happened on my recent holiday trip. So I booked a 16-day trip in Europe across 9 countries in early December through Contiki. I went into the trip hoping to meet a lot of new people and see/experience a lot of things in Europe, and sure enough I experienced and met a lot of interesting and friendly people that I spent 16 days traveling with. I met this wonderful girl, let's call her Grace, on the first day of the trip, and we sat next to each other on the bus. As we talked and talked throughout the bus trip, I became very fond of her and would spend the next few days of the trip with her, not exclusively but part of a small group. Days went by and I had started to develop feelings for her. Now I've never been in a relationship before, and I'd say I'm quite inexperienced with the whole flirting game, because my way of dealing with these kind of feelings is to just sit on them or just flat out ignore them. However, I've been on a bit of a spiritual journey this year with regards to self-love and self-discovery, so I thought, what the hell, I'll shoot my shot, as I probably have a very low chance of seeing her again after the trip finishes, as we all go our separate ways. So if it happens, it happens. Grace had her birthday coming up soon and we be in Rome together to celebrate it, so I decided I'll buy her a thoughtful gift and tell her about my feelings for her, but at this point I didn't know what to get her. About 4 days before we got to Rome, we were in Prague and I was visiting/seeing the infamous Charles Bridge with Grace and a bunch of other people. While we were there, Grace kept going on about how the Spider-Man Far From Home had a scene on this bridge featuring Tom Holland and Zendaya. I'm a vivid Spider-Man fan, so I knew instantly what scene she was talking about. It was the scene where Tom takes Zendaya out for a walk on the bridge and then tries to give her a gift and confess his feelings for her. This was my light bulb moment. I knew what I wanted to do now. We were going to be in Venice in a couple days, and I know in the movie Tom Holland buys a black dahlia flower necklace for Zendaya. So I thought I'd try to kinda replicate that and try to buy the same necklace for Grace. So a couple days go by and we end up in Venice. At this point I'm so excited because I've never done something like this for anyone before, and for once in my life I'm actually trying to do something about my feelings for someone. Anyways, straight after the tour of Venice in gondolas, I head out on my search for the necklace on my own. I went into every glass shop I could find as I was walking around the streets of Venice, but I couldn't find exactly what I was looking for. Hours go by, and it was soon time to leave the city of Venice, yet I couldn't find anything that I was looking for, but thankfully half an hour before we were due to get in the ferry and leave Venice, I found a shop that had a beautiful necklace that had a black flower as the central piece, and I knew as soon as I saw it that it was the one. It wasn't exactly like the one in the movie, but it looked similar enough so that she'd know where it was from and the meaning behind it. So I left Venice feeling accomplished. A day later we're in Rome. Finally the day had come. I was very excited but also quite nervous as this was in the realm of the unknown for me. I mustered up the courage to ask her to see her alone. We met in the lobby and I suggested that we go for a walk outside. So we went on a walk. I asked how her day was going and what she got up to today, as we had a free day in Rome. Soon after that conversation I told her that I got her a birthday gift and promptly handed her the wrapped box with the necklace. As she opened it, she realized what the necklace was and where it was from almost immediately. She stopped walking and asked, "Is this a black dahlia necklace?" And I replied yes. She opened up her arms and asked me for a big hug. It was one of the best hugs I've ever received, and then I told her about my feelings for her. She told me she kinda knew already from other people. I told a few other people on the trip, but she wasn't really looking for anyone at this point as she had a really bad break-up earlier in the year. She had also started to distance herself from me prior to this day, but I didn't really try to think of it much. Anyways, I understood her perspective on the matter and thanked her for her honesty. On the way back to the hotel, she told me she felt bad for saying no, and I told her that she shouldn't feel bad about being completely honest with me. It's for the betterment of both of us. We then proceeded to distance ourselves a bit from each other for the rest of the trip to give each other a bit of space. I didn't let this rejection ruin the rest of the trip. In my mind, I wore it like a badge of honor. I'm so proud of myself that I did something like this for someone special, even though it didn't work out in the end. Now I feel like telling every one of my friends and the whole world about this, so here I am. Everyone now and then I'd watch the Venice and Prague scene from the movie to feel the butterflies again, because I went out and did something very similar to the movie. Thanks for reading all this if you got to the end. I appreciate you. Story 6, My Love Story That Cannot Be Completed. It all began, maybe, 4 years ago. I've started noticing him in the hallways. But it wasn't something specific, I just really liked his looks. Then, 3 years ago happened something that I didn't expect at all. We started chatting through Telegram. To be honest, at that time I was a shy person, and moreover, I wasn't sure about my sexuality. We were just playing Genshin and messaging, nothing much. I still don't know what's gotten into me, but I offered to go out for a picnic in the city center. It was lovely. I opened up to him, we had a really deep conversation. We kept this up for a long time, and something changed after our visit to the cinema. I followed him to his house, and in the end he kissed me on the cheek. It was the first time ever when a guy did something that special in my life. We were both nervous, and that's totally fine, I get it. Then, someday we went to his house, I met his mom and dad, they were great and welcoming. We went to his room, where our first kiss happened. That was unexpected, he caught me off guard, but I enjoyed it. The upcoming event was his birthday. LMAO, I remember how I was planning all those gifts and stuff. And the most precious thing was that he really liked them. After the celebration with his friends, he offered me to stay for a sleepover because it was too late outside. I was never on a sleepover before, and I was even afraid to ask her. But I did it. I called her and asked, and she answered yes. We spent the night together, nothing much happened, only a bit corny stuff. In a few days after that we started dating, I was on a cloud nine. We went out on a few days a month, and it felt amazing, really. There were some issues from my side due to traumas and being scared of abandonment, however, At some point he proved that he won't do such thing. But I wasn't wrong. In a week he sent me video messages where he, while crying, said how sorry he was, and that we need to end this, and how scared he was about his parents finding out. I knew something was off, but I didn't want to push him. Somehow, I overcome my own problems just to understand his problems. I thought it was the end. In a month, in my country the war had started, and he was forced to move to another country. I don't know why, but we kept talking. I didn't what the point was of this chat. Then, we kinda stopped talking to each other, just maybe sent some TikToks, and that's all. In a few months he sent me a TikTok, followed with his crying video message. Of course, I got sad. I tried to comfort him, and I succeeded. After some time, he told me the real reason why we broke up. His sister found out, and told him to do this, or else she would have told his parents and his peaceful life would have been destroyed. All that time I thought that the breakup thing was my fault, but it wasn't. And there he was, offering our relationship back, but this time on distance. I loved him, that was the only reason why I agreed. It sucked. We had our relationship like for 2 months, and we were getting nowhere. He ended everything. I said to him that if he would ever again consider going back to me, he better be ready for it and he should have serious intentions. Half a year passed by, and here was summer. I was in a relationship with other guy. I was kind of happy. One night, I had a dream with my partner and my ex at that time. I was walking into the room where my birthday party was held with my partner holding my hand. And there he was, saying miss me? I woke up like from the nightmare. And the next day he sent me a TikTok at 4 a.m. So you would understand, no contact for 6 months, and then a TikTok? This TikTok meant a lot to me, it broke me into pieces. You know that movie, Inside Out? And that core memory stuff? The TikTok said that I will always be there. Here I was, crying in my bed in the morning. I'm a tough guy, thanks to my parents, I'm not used to cry. But I was desperate, I was in a relationship. And I was still in love with my ex. For 3 days I was suffering, not able to tell any of my friends because it felt wrong. In a few days I broke down in front of my partner and told him the truth. The thing is that sometimes I become crazy and obsessed with some kind of idea. You are going to understand it really soon. Okay, it took me a week to break up with the current partner, but I told him the truth. Then, I contacted my ex. I was curious about how he was doing. Well, through the chat I could see that he was glad about it. Later he told me that he was thinking about texting me. So, it was mutual. Long story short, my crazy idea was to move for studying in the same country where he lives. When I told him about it, at first he was shocked, then he was helping me with every step, and offered to live with him. My parents supported that idea, they didn't know, and I haven't told them yet. So, yes, basically, in 2 months I moved in. We had our awaited conversation. But the result wasn't amusing. So, he told me about his sex adventures through Grindr here. And also he told me that he cheated on me while we were distantly dating. Again, he was apologizing. At that moment I forgave him, because I didn't feel like that mattered. I didn't feel like dating when he cheated. Then he threw a bomb at me, and said that he doesn't want to date for now. He wanted to, but changed his mind a few days ago. I was like, "Go away." I was really disappointed. I was stuck with him. He was close and at the same time far away. I asked him, "Are you sure?" He answered that he was. I asked him to give me guarantees that he wouldn't ever want to have a relationship with me. He said that he couldn't do it. So yes, I was left with nothing, again. Now, what's the main issue? I live with him every day of my life. It would be okay if we weren't close. But right now it is a common thing for him to lay on my knees, to fall asleep on them, to lay on my shoulder, to watch serials together, to go to the cinema together, to go to a party together, to travel together, and to make plans for the future together. In the meantime, he still goes out on hookups through Grindr. And he's proud about it. I worry about my mental state and his. By the way, it also looks like he's proud about cheating on me. But he won't keep away from me. If you read everything, thank you, I really appreciate it. Story 7, My Wife and I, Our Love Story. My wife and I met in high school. We started as acquaintances in some of the same classes. I never really thought much of her other than she was in my class and she was cute. Somehow, I, and a bunch of other people became a friend group at a lunch table. Soon, this friend group would all hang out on the weekends. One of the other guys from the group asked her out. I wasn't disappointed or anything, I really didn't give it a whole lot of thought other than, good for them. The only dates or dating I did were with girls who asked me out. I did date a girl from the end of senior year until I left the area, military. We did the long-distance thing the whole time I was in. When I was home, I hung out with my girlfriend and my high school friend group, which included her and her boyfriend. He was one of my best friends since elementary. I found out later that nobody in my friend group liked my girlfriend. My wife confessed, after we were married, that she always thought I was too good for her. In my last year in the military, I was home on leave. I was hanging out with her and her boyfriend, and I asked him why they weren't engaged or married yet. They had been dating almost 6 years by then. They were both evasive. I didn't know they were having trouble and were on again, off again. I joked that if he didn't marry her in a year, I would. Thinking about it, that was probably the last straw. If that wasn't, the next part probably was. So, being the buddies that we were, I asked her to go Christmas shopping with me. I was shopping for my girlfriend and had no idea. Once again, I found out later that she fought the urge to grab my hand that whole day. So my leave came to an end, and I had to go back to my duty station. Before I left, I stopped by her house. We chatted. When I was ready to leave, I said goodbye, and we kissed. I turned, walked to my car, got in, put the keys in the ignition, then the world stopped. What the fuck just happened? A couple of months later, she came to visit me. I lived in a touristy area, and she wanted to see it. Allegedly. Later, I found out she wanted to know if that kiss was a fluke or what. So she flew in. I picked her up, and we hung out that day like the buddies that we were. That night, we went back to her hotel. We talked and laughed and had a good time, as buddies do. It got late. I was going to excuse myself. She said, or you could stay here. I was confused. There was only one bed and no couch. If I was going to have to sleep on the floor, I'd rather go home. She had gone into the bathroom and came out in a little nightie. Nothing super sexy, but not a whole lot there. Lying next to an almost naked woman in my underwear, it still took me longer than it should to make a move. When I did, it was freaking me out. I was kissing my best buddy. I was looking straight at her breasts. Again, what the fuck is happening? We were attached at the lips and other places the rest of the weekend. A really long story made a little shorter, we made the year deadline. Within 6 months, we were engaged and married 5 months later. That was 2 kids and 30 years ago. We're still buddies. Sometimes I look across the living room, she's sitting in her chair, and I think, what the fuck just happened? Bye and see you again in the next videos and stories.